Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about Avowed. It's a single player RPG made by Obsidian Entertainment, the same people that brought us Fallout New Vegas and Outer Worlds and other games of the same category. So I did a full playthrough of the game, and these are my thoughts and rating of the game. So first off, we're going to talk about the story. You, the character, are playing as an envoy of a kingdom named Adir. Adir is very similar in its structure to that of the Roman Empire, where they just conquer other nations and they could still have their own cultures and beliefs and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you're a part of this bigger cogwheel of a nation. You have to follow their laws, their rules, and kind of assimilate to their culture. So you're sent to investigate a plague that is ravaging this island known as the Living Lands, and you are a godlike. A godlike is somebody that in the womb was touched by a god, so now you have this connection to this god. It can be one of the many gods that they have, and in this particular case, you don't know which god actually touched you while you were in the womb. So you are a godless without a god. And as you play through the game, you start to learn more about that and really learn who you are as a character. So to become the envoy, you were taken in by the king. You did everything that the king asked you to do, and you slowly rose the ranks in court to where you're now his right-hand man. And this is why he sends you to the Living Lands to investigate this plague. It's called the Dream Plague. And being a godlike, you have some features that are uncharacteristic of all the other species in the game. So as you can see in the character creation here, my character has like roots growing out of his head, and you could have flowers covering your eyes, and it's just a bunch of facial deformities in a sense. And other characters, if you select this option in the character creation, will react to your presence and treat you differently than you would if you had that switched off. If you have it switched off, you just get treated like any other character. You're only known as the envoy of Adir, and people don't really notice you're a godlike. I decided to play with this feature on because I just wanted to be treated differently because my character is different. So to go a little more into the story without saying too much, I'm not a big fan of spoiling games for others, even in my reviews. Everything that you do has a consequence or a benefit. It just depends on what you pick. So you're always given option A or option B, and sometimes even an option C, and whatever you pick, you stick to, and other characters will notice this and react to it. Not just in the moment, but as you go through the game, you are often reminded of the decisions that you have made, even in the optional quests. So the optional quests are scattered all throughout the world like any other open world single player RPG. I wouldn't necessarily say this is fully open world because you are restricted to specifically 5 zones rather than having this giant map that you can traverse. And the optional quests will be something as simple as, hey, my brother's gone missing, can you go find him? And you go to find the character, and you have a decision to make. You see them in trouble, do you let them die and just report that they're dead, or do you go in and save them? And that end of that optional quest will have a major impact later on down the line. Everything has an implication. You save the character, they're going to be grateful. Who knows? They may help you with something down the line, or you may just run into them and they'll just give you random loot. Or if you report that they're dead, later on down the line, you might run into the character and they're having the worst time of their life. You know, they're homeless or they don't have anything, and they just greet you with such disdain because you were not able to save this character's brother. And I think that's pretty neat. You don't have to do the optional content, but if you do, you will see the implications of it later on down the line. Speaking of the optional quests, I like and dislike them at the same time. So, my biggest gripe with them was that you have to do the optional quests in order to progress the main story, unless you're some ultra gamer and you're perfectly comfortable fighting mobs for maybe 5 to 10 minutes at a time, like a single mob. Now multiply that by 10 mobs, and you're going to sit there for like 15-20 minutes fighting the same fight, and it can tend to feel tedious because you're not geared up enough for it. So the upgrade system is a very big thing. So you have to kind of go through and do the optional quests, or you just run around endlessly farming and bartering and just trying to get yourself better gear. The way that you prepare yourself for quests that are outside of your level, quote unquote, is by level they mean gear. Your character will always be able to do all the content in the game, but gear is a major factor. The game will tell you how hard exactly a quest is and if you have the appropriate gear for it. Early on, I found myself struggling to find stuff for upgrades, and so I just went out and did every single optional quest in the first zone just to make sure I was better prepared for what's to come. And I feel like that really takes out the whole optional part in optional quests. They should be strictly optional. You know, getting extra gear from it is nice and all, but that shouldn't be a big factor like it is currently. You kind of need that gear in order to push on with the main story. So, for example, optional quests will often give you unique items like weapons and armor, and nothing will really outmatch that. Because of the upgrade system, if you find a piece of gear, like a unique that you find early on in the game, you could just keep using it the entire game and continuously upgrading it. But I find myself, at least in the early to middle game, struggling to find a lot of the resources needed for said upgrades. Now onto the map and exploration side of the game. I like how there was a lot of little random spots on the map, but there is an optional quest that takes you to every spot on the map. So you'll very rarely run into things by just sheer coincidence, because at some point you were meant to go there, and you could just complete the objective for the optional quest before you even pick up the quest by accident. I've done this a few times with bounties. I'll just be roaming, find a bounty mob, kill it, and be like, oh cool, the bounty is already done. And then I'll just go and turn it in, not realizing that I just completed the bounty. So the map actually looks bigger than it actually is. So when you look at the in-game map, I'll put a little picture here just to show you. It'll look huge, but getting from the bottom of the map to the top of the map will only take about a minute and a half of running, just going in a straight line. You'll go through the whole map like it's nothing. But on paper, it just looks absolutely massive. And granted, there are a lot of caves and little cubbies that you can go into and like optional areas, if you can call them that. But at the end of the day, the map isn't as big as I thought it would be. There's 5 zones that you can go to, but each zone feels to be about the same size. I wish they kind of went with the open world element to kind of eliminate the loading screens and make you really feel like you're traversing all these zones. But either way, I still think that the map was pretty sizable for what it is, and you got to see a lot of different ecosystems and different cultures, and you got to see what each biome was like. A big problem that I did have with the exploration, though, is that there was a lot of mobs from Zone 1 that were in Zone 4 and Zone 5. It felt like they were reusing assets a lot, and I really wish that, for example, the skeletons in the forest zone look different than the skeletons in the desert zone. You would think they'd have different armor on at the very least. Maybe their bones look differently because of the climate, but no. They use the same exact models in every single zone. Maybe you'll have a few models that'll be a variation, but overall, they just use the same models. You'll see the same lizards in every zone, the same skeletons, the same beetles, pretty much the same everything. Even the wildlife that you can't touch, like the little squirrel-looking things that run around, they're all the same. Nothing feels different. If I go on an island and it has multiple biomes, when I travel to a different biome, things will start to look differently. Only the landscape and the buildings look different, but overall everything else is the same. Now to talk about the combat. So the combat I thought was pretty neat. There was different weapon types that you can use. There's a musket, which is a two-handed rifle, a flintlock, which is one hand, sword, mace, and axe, both one hand and two-hand variations. There's a bow, and then there is a wand with a grimoire in your offhand. You can mix and match, so you can have a flintlock in your left hand and a sword in your right hand, and you can dictate which hand gets which weapon. I thought that was really awesome. There was a lot of customization when it came to the combat, but when you're actually engaging in the combat, there are some like little elements like dodging and parrying that you could do, but overall it just felt like it was very repetitive. Towards the end of the game, I just found myself spamming the strong strikes because there is a bar, like a stamina bar, under the target's health, and when it maxes out, it stuns them for a second, and you could do like a little combo that does a lot of damage, and it's a guaranteed crit every time. The magic is where I found the most variation in, because there's about 15 to 20 different spells that you could use, and they may share elements, but they all do different things. There is a chain lightning versus a lightning orb that flies between targets, and there's magical orbs that you can summon, and then there is a fireball you can shoot, as well as a flame breath, and so many more. And you can kind of choose what spells you have. So you have an action bar on the bottom of the screen, but if you don't have everything that you want on that action bar, you can equip a grimoire. Hold right click. I'm not sure what the button is on controller. I'm sorry, I played with mouse and keyboard, but it'll give you access to new spells that the grimoire comes equipped with. And I thought that was pretty cool, but overall, the combat got really dull towards the end. I just found myself, like I said, spamming the strong strike and praying that I break their stance and hit them with the combo. I just did that to every target that I encountered. I just kind of wish that they added a little more of an oomph to it, if you catch my drift. Like, the abilities were nice, but it just felt like it was really missing something. I can't quite put my finger on it, but overall the combat was okay for a game like this. The game is more so a story game, so it just I understand why they didn't really focus on the combat too much. And outside of that, the upgrade system was kind of lackluster. Like I said earlier, it was really hard to find materials early on in the game, and money is a very scarce resource in this game. Like, you can't just go out and farm money like it's nothing. It'll take you a long time to farm up for items in the late game. I wish that they added more items throughout the game, but overall, I think the pace was okay-ish. But now let's get to the bread and butter, which is the actual ratings itself. In terms of story, I thought the story was really great. I played the game all the way to the end, and I felt like every decision I made was extremely impactful. And it gives you this little thing at the end of the game, kind of like Dragon Age, where they go over every major decision you made and how it impacted the characters after the game, which I thought was really awesome. So overall, I'm going to have to give this story a 9.5 out of 10. I thought they did an amazing job with the story. Only gripe I had with it was that there's this one character that just talks to you in your dreams every time you camp out with your party to like upgrade your equipment and stuff. I just thought it got really repetitive. It got really annoying. It kind of reminded me of the brain in Baldur's Gate 3. Like, the voice was just like the brain, and then you have your guardian that talks to you every time you go to bed, and it just got so repetitive and so annoying very, very, very fast. In terms of the map and the exploration, I feel like a bigger map, more random spots that weren't tied to optional quests would have been great, but I do think there was enough to see. I think they could have done more with mob variations, so I'm going to have to give the map and exploration side of the game a 7.5 out of 10. I definitely think they could have done better with that. And now for the combat. The combat itself was nice, and I did like that there was a lot of different customization. The best part of the combat was the magic. If you're playing a melee build or a ranged build, I feel like it could get really boring really fast, but the magic kept up, and with all the new abilities that you get throughout the game, it definitely felt like it was something that was just being built upon, like stone after stone after stone. So new spells, new spells, new spells, and you always felt like you were doing something new. I'm gonna have to give the combat an 8 out of 10. I think they did a great job with it. I think they would have to work on the melee combat a little more and just really refine it and make it feel more engaging than it actually is. But yeah, an 8 out of 10 for the combat. I thought it was pretty good. The overall rating of the game, I'm going to have to give it an 8.3 out of 10. I definitely think it's a very underrated game. I think people were so quick to compare it to Skyrim, when in reality, they're really not trying to be Skyrim. I think this is a great game, and I think it was overshadowed by the fact that there was just this whole list of bad games that came out at the time, and people really weren't willing to give it the real chance that it needed. Anything under an 8 out of 10, I think they're really just kind of bandwagoning and just hating on the game just to hate it. I think Obsidian Entertainment did a great job with the game, and I would definitely buy an Avowed 2 if it came out. Thank you all for watching this video. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We got some great games cooking, and I hope you all stay and watch more. Thank you so much.